I haven't done a live video in a while, and I haven't done one because honestly, my phone can be really wishy-washy on when I can do live videos and when I can't. I downloaded an app that would let me do it, but the processing time was so long, and sometimes, like in the middle of it processing or whatever, it would get corrupt and we would lose it. So I stopped using that completely. So I happened to go to upload my video a few days ago, and I saw that the live option for YouTube was back. So I was like, "Holy shit! All right, well maybe I'll do a live video once in a while." But I needed an excuse, not an excuse. I needed more reason to want to come and do a live video. So I think today I actually have an excuse to do one. Something. Hold on, I'm looking for my little comb. You know me, I fidget. I fidget when I talk. So I need to be doing something. So a couple of years ago, like 2015, it was, oh, you're fine, baby. I'm doing a live video. It was, I want to say 2015, 2016, when we really got into, okay, we're going to do this whole podcast thing. And we were having a good time with it. And I started reaching out to other people who were doing podcasts. And I won't say the guy's name because I don't want to put him out there. It's like he's in a weird place right now. So we were having a conversation, and at the time, I considered myself a free thinking Baptist. Free thinking Baptist in the sense that I wasn't necessarily going for the things that were being told to me in a church or by a religious group. I wanted to be more skeptical and be more of a critical thinker. I wanted to be able to answer those things for myself, you know? And I felt like if there was any God who had issue with that, like, why would you have a problem with me seeking knowledge? Like, wouldn't that be the point? Isn't that what any father would want for their children? It's like, I'm a father, my son's a grown man now, but I want him to seek knowledge. I want him to seek understanding. I want him to come to terms with the world and the way it is and let him figure out on his own way how he's going to deal with that. So, as a heavenly father, you would think that that's especially what he would want. And I tend to shy away from talking about religion on this channel as to not put people off. But in the same thought of having that thought, I remind myself that these videos are for me. I'm here to chronicle me. This is my life according to Patrick. Life according to Asia. It's like that's what we're doing. So if we're gonna have an honest conversation, we need to have an honest conversation. For many, many years, I considered myself a free thinking Baptist. I've actually even got an email, freethinkingbaptist at gmail.com. It's just spam at this point now. But that's where I was in life. I considered myself, I'm thinking for myself. I'm not going to let you tell me what I should think, or I'm not going to let you tell me how I should feel. I'm going to come to these conclusions on my own. And I did. But as time went on, I started realizing that even holding on to the phrase, free thinking Baptist, at the end of that was Baptist, which implied religion of some kind. And I do not subscribe to any sort of religion because while some religions may mean well, they in practice it doesn't work for me. And I could give you examples, and I'm not gonna. It's like, because that's not what this is about. This is not about my journey. See, I went from free thinking Baptist, and then I kind of I wrestled with the idea of saying I was atheist because I didn't want it. Atheist came with such a stigma. It was such a negative connotation around the word atheist, and I wanted to avoid that. Like Oprah Winfrey was like, if you're an atheist, then you can't experience real happiness. And I was thinking to myself, well, I experience happiness. I've been married to a wonderful woman now for half a decade. Like, I'm happy. So clearly that must not be me. I can't be an atheist. But the word atheist itself is really just, I am not convinced that God exists. That's it. I'm just not convinced. And then I was like, okay, well maybe I'm agnostic. because agnostic is kind of like he don't believe, I'm not sure, I'm kind of on the fence. But agnostic is really just like gnostic is like knowledge. Like I know. So agnostic would mean I don't know. And because we're not talking about knowledge, I don't know if a God exists or not. I don't believe if a God exists or not. So I'm not agnostic because it's not a matter of I don't know. It's a matter of I don't believe. I've not been convinced that a God exists. So that's kind of where I was for a while. It's like I'll stick with atheist. I got over my negative connotations about it. I was like, I'll stick with atheist. I guess that's kind of what I am. That's fine. But as time went on, and I would listen to debates, especially when I was at work. I would like download debates, or I would just like watch them on YouTube and like put it in the headphones and just listen. That was kind of my thing. But as time went on and I did that more and more, it started to occur to me that I think I'm much more an anti theist than anything else. I'm completely against the idea that people believe a God exists. Because it's one thing to believe and say, oh, I've had this experience and, it must be God. It's like you're attributing these things to God because you don't know what they are. And it's the equivalent of me saying, I've never watched a live childbirth, therefore it must be the stork. It seemed not factual to me, you know? So as a person who is always in pursuit of truth, I need to know what these things are. It's like I think theists just stop. They're not looking for the truth because they think they found the truth. And not only that, they'll reject things that come against their worldview. And that's not me. If something were to come across my desk that made me think of the things that I thought of differently, I could adjust my worldview. But theists can't do that. And it was that decision alone, I think, that really led me to I am now an anti-theist. I'm not like, oh, I hate people who believe in God. That's ridiculous. Like my mother-in-law is super Christian. I love her to death. There are people in my life who are religious, and it's just I turn my nose up at the concept of religion. The idea that God won't help starving kids, but he helped you find your car keys this morning is ludicrous to me. The fact that people say, God didn't stop school shootings because prayer isn't allowed in school. Well, prayer's allowed in church and people are getting raped there. Prayer's allowed in church. A church got shot up recently. So where was God? Like, I don't see acts of this. But okay, we're getting past the point. So I painted the picture. This is where I am and why. I now consider myself an anti-theist. But at early 2016, I wasn't. I was more free-thinking Baptist, and I was having conversations with this guy, and he was, at the time, super Christian, or at least Christian. Let's not paint him a picture. And I'm just like, look, man, you should think for yourself. You should come to these conclusions for yourself. And we kind of just agreed to disagree, and we moved on from there. That was just kind of the end of it. We didn't talk about it anymore. And then I think there was a day or two when my internet was down, and it just kind of knocked the wind out of me in terms of, okay, let's go back to podcasting. So it just kind of stopped. And, sooner or later it came down to we were still friends on Facebook, but I hit the unfollow button so his shit wouldn't pop up in my news feed. And we just kind of left it at that. But he contacted me last night, and he was like, hey, man, I really want to get in touch with you. You were right. I'm putting it together. I'm figuring it out. I'm not a Christian anymore, but I have questions. And man, if there was never a reason to have these talks with people, that's it. That's the one that reminded me this is why we need to have these talks. Because you can sit down and have a talk with a person and they don't necessarily come to terms with their beliefs. Oh, whatever, I don't believe you. I believe in God, and God did this, and God will provide. But maybe you planted a seed, or at least in the back of their mind, their wheels are turning. So down the line, when they see other things that kind of start matching with what you were saying, they'll associate those things, and maybe the next thing puts them over the top. Maybe the thing after that puts them over the top. But regardless of how many it is, it's important that people are thinking for themselves. So he called me today, and we had about a 40-minute conversation. And it's very important because I've had this talk with people quite a bit. I'm not going to call any names, but you know who you are. We had this conversation, and I was very clear as to say, let's have this talk. Let's have a conversation about it. But also know that if you think about it and your answers still lead you to a God, then at least you can say you did it on your own. It wasn't because you were indoctrinated. It wasn't because you were told. It's not out of fear. It's not the idea of, oh, I just need to get into heaven, so this is what I'm going to do. Don't feel bad for popping in. It's fine. I'm doing a live video.
Oh, you are?
Yeah. What's up?
I was wondering when you're done, you don't rush, if you wouldn't mind getting the laundry.
Oh, yeah, sure. I'll wrap this up and I'll take care of that for you,
don't
baby.
wrap it up. It's fine. I was just wondering.
Yeah.
If not, I can run it.
Hey, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it. I got you. It's, for me, it's just important that you come to your own conclusions, not the conclusions that were given to you in church, not that you're falling for any assertions, not because you read a book, because they say, oh, well, it's in the book. It's like, look, man, Batman's in comic books. That doesn't mean Gotham City's real. It's just like, it's a book. And say 500 who say it's a great car, go ahead and buy it. You're not going to go, well, since 500 people say so, I'm going to do that. You'd be like, well, who are these people? Can I talk to them? I'd be like, oh, no, they're all since dead. But here's a book that explains to you. Also, the car has magical powers. Like, what? But also, the car has magical powers, but the car's not here. But I need you to give me the money for it, and I'll give you the car when you die. What? It's ridiculous to me. It's I don't understand how people go for this. I don't. So I'm very much an anti-theist in the sense that I just want people to think for themselves. I just want people, and again, if you come to the conclusion, if you read it all and you listen to debates and you do your research, you go to fucking Wikipedia. Don't go to Answers in Genesis because it's really just, from the biblical perspective. You want a completely non-subjective viewpoint from somebody who it's just facts, because a fact is the sort of thing that can be proven by anyone. Now, don't go into it with any notions. Go into it just wanting the truth. Like, I think Iron Chariots is a pretty good spot to go if you're just looking for that kind of thing. I'm a Matt Dillahunty fan. I'm an Aaron Ra fan. I'm a Seth Andrews fan. Like, these are guys who aren't telling you that there's no God. They're just telling you reasons why there's no need to associate a God with the things that happen to you in your life. I hesitate to tell this story, but I feel like I should. But I'll keep out names and relations. How about that? Just to, a couple of years ago, someone close to me had a family member who was very sick, and they were in the hospital. And I went to the hospital with them because, that's what you do. And we were sitting there and we were having the talk, and they're just like, oh, we'll pray for speedy recovery. God will see them through it. And like the family got together and they circled the bed and they're all doing the thing. And and it was really beautiful. And I remember sitting outside the hospital with this person, and they asked me how I had dealt with death in my life. And I said, well, maybe you have to think about it. And again, they were Christian. So I didn't want to, be like, well, when you die, nothing happens. It's a hurtful truth, but it's not what you need to hear in that moment. I was just like, well, if they do die, you have to think that this is what God would have wanted, right? And she said, yeah, I guess you're right. So they prayed, and it's like, oh, God will deliver you, God will heal you, God will do this. With God, all things are possible. And then they died. And then it's like, oh, Jesus took him home. Oh, praise the Lord, he went home. But it's just, if you really thought that, you wouldn't have been praying for him to get healed. You know, you would the second you knew you were about to die, or if you thought death was around the corner, you'd be like, "Fuck yeah, celebration time! I'm going to heaven." But we cling to life because part of us knows better. I think. I think part of us realizes that it's bullshit, but it's it's a it's a comforting lie that we tell each other and ourselves to feel better about the things that we don't know. And I don't agree with that. I just don't. That that bothers me. So I just religion is just so weird to me. Weird in the sense that you claim to know things that you couldn't possibly know. You hide behind the excuses that apologists give you. Well, something can't come from nothing, and if there's a watch, there has to be a watchmaker. If there's a control, there has to be a control maker. If there's a planet, there has to be a planet maker. And it's just like, yeah, but I can contact Sony and through a series of investigations determine who was on shift the day that this controller, or at least one similar to it, was constructed. I can go into a watch store and talk to the watchmaker. What you're implying is that, okay, that's besides the point. That's really besides the point. I was talking to this guy today, and it just, it made me feel nice to know that I had struck a chord with this guy to the point that he was like, okay, now I'm thinking about it. This makes sense to me. Tell me more. So now I get to point him in the right direction. Now I get to send him shit like Matt Dillahunty and Seth Andrews and Aaron Ra. I get to send him things that, helped me along in my journey. And if he gets to where I am, cool. It took me 40 some odd years to get here. He's considerably younger. He may not get where I am. And if he does, it may not be as quickly as I do. And that's fine. But it's nice to know that something I said resonated with him and it made him want to know more. And that for me, this was a moment for me. I felt real good knowing that I had helped a guy. He was just, his reason for contacting me was the last time we had spoken, he said, well, he said that I said, and honestly, I don't recall. He said that I said that I didn't care where I ended up when I died, which is kind of true and kind of not true. So allow me to elaborate, and then I'm going to go get the clothes out to dry for my wife because she asked me to. If I said that, which I'm pretty sure I did because it sounds like something I would say, allow me to clarify that. If I were to die and end up in purgatory or wherever judgment takes place, and they say, you were a good husband, you were a good father, you didn't smother babies, you didn't kick puppies, you didn't kick down old ladies, you were a decent provider, you never cheated on your wife, you did your best to be a good father, hopefully a good grandfather, cross your fingers on that one, but you didn't believe in God, you're going to hell. I'll accept that. I'll accept that because I in my mind used critical thinking, and from their perspective, the abilities that God gave me to come to the conclusion that there was no God. So if I'm going to be punished for using common sense and not just attributing everyday things like, oh, there's a tree, therefore God, oh, the sun came up, therefore God, then I'll accept that. And I'm not saying, oh, I'll go to hell to spite God. That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just I used critical thinking. So it's fine. So now I'm eternity of suffering. So I'm in hell now. and I'm suffering for forever. And the example that I gave my friend that I was talking to is that when I was younger, I separated my shoulder here. I was pushing a car up a hill on a freeway because the car had died. I couldn't get it started. I had to get it home. I couldn't leave it where it was. So I'm pushing it up this ramp and I popped my shoulder out of place. And it took a lot for me to get it back in, but something went wrong. So I now have a chronic pain in my shoulder. I've had it for at least 20 years now. But if my wife says, "Hey, how you doing? How do you feel?" I don't go, "Oh yeah, my shoulder really hurts today, babe," because it's just I'm used to that now. I'm aware that there's a pain in my shoulder and it doesn't impact me throughout my day. At what point in eternity would you just not care that you were being burned anymore? At some point, the nerve endings are completely fucking severed and it would just be another day. It would just be something that was fucking happening to you. Like, you know, it just wouldn't be a thing. But on the flip side, if I were to get into heaven, and even if, like, I love pizza, and they say, "Oh, well, in heaven, you can have pizza every single day." That sounds great. But after like 100,000 years, I'm going to go, "Oh, what's for dinner? Fucking pizza. All right, I guess we're having pizza." Look, there have been times when I've had pizza for 4 or 5 days straight, and then at some point I go, "Oh, okay, I think I'm done with pizza." So imagine an eternity, and not just food, not just torture, just an eternity of the same damn thing. Where at some point, look, I love my wife. I love my wife from here to eternity. I do. But after 10,000 years of the same shit, eventually one of us is going to get bored with it, you know? Like, so even if you're talking an eternity of suffering or an eternity of joy, at some point, joy is just going to be a bother to you. You're going to be like, "What the fuck am I doing?" And then, like, let's say I get into heaven and my wife doesn't. Well, it's not heaven for me. You know, I can't be with the people that I love. I'm not going to start quoting Bibles. I'm not. So the concept of eternal reward or eternal punishment, like, everybody wants to be applauded for the work that they do, but at some point, the slow clap has to die down, and you have to go about your business. I don't want people clapping for me for eternity. I don't need eternal praise. That's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous concept. But look, I've babbled long enough. I just wanted to have an honest conversation with you guys because I was humbled that this guy came to me and was like, "Hey, please tell me more." It made me feel nice. It really did. I'm glad to know that something I said resonated with him, and hopefully with other people that I have conversations with, it resonates with them too. Not resonates to the point that it leads you to where I am and you are now an anti-theist, but resonates with you to the point that you're at least asking the questions and then you come to the conclusion that works for you. Now, I wish I could have ended it when I said it works for you, but now I have to figure out how to end the video. Do I hit the button here? Do I hit the X? I don't think it's this one. That just says share or mute microphone, so that's not it. I don't want to mute the microphone. It might just be the X. So let's hit the X, see what happens. Are you sure you want to stop streaming? Ah, see, I worked it out. Yes, I am done streaming for the day. Thanks for watching.